We're back here at the Tulsa Arms Show here in beautiful Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm here with Jim Sapika, the director of the National Firearms Museum for the NRA, and Mike D'Ambra. Mike, we held you over because you're about these four beautiful long guns here, and we were talking sort of the history of the long gun. Pick us up with firearm number 3. Where are we in this history?
Well, at the close of the Revolutionary War, we had an abundance of gunsmiths that were making guns for the American cause. And in order to maintain and sustain themselves, they started to look for ways to make guns for other clients, for privateers. And so in doing that, they had to embellish the guns in a more fanciful way to make them attractive and to attract consumers. So as you can see, as it evolved to, the guns got fancier patch boxes with engraving on the backside. There's some very, very artistic engraving or carving on it. And the more embellishments, obviously, the more expensive the gun piece would be. And they would sign the arms in most cases, and that would be reflective. That would be the advertisement for them, and they would be able to extend, you know, the business on with other consumers as well.
It's developing that very graceful, drooping stock line that I think of when I think of a long rifle. Is
Yes.
that kind of an American innovation too?
Without question, that is an American innovation. Matter of fact, there's what we call schools of gun making in the Kentucky rifle arena. This particular gun came from the Reading area of Pennsylvania. It's got a very slender wrist over here, and then it's got a pronounced comb on it. And that's significant of or indicative of that region of Reading. Now, if you went to the Lancaster region of Pennsylvania, you would find that the architecture would be slightly different. So there were different schools of gun making, and people, you know, basically gravitated to the regions that they were living in, and those are the ones that they did acquire.
It never ceases to amaze me. You got somebody like Mike who really knows this field, and they can look at a rifle that may have a couple of initials in the barrels, may have nothing, and they can identify not only the region but start getting down to the county and the particular, maybe even the gunsmith or his apprentices. But each one's they each kind of have their own individual style and own signature.
A signature, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course, then as we progressed, as we got into the late 1820s, what we evolved from was an improved ignition system called the Percussion System, which is on the lowest rifle.
Yeah.
And about that period, about 1830 is considered the transition period where most guns being made at that time were in the percussion firing mechanism.
Okay.
And this one displays that mechanism, and it was a faster firing, and it was a more consistent firing system. So it was very reliable, and of course that's where many of these older guns then were converted from flintlock configuration to percussion as they continue to use the arm.
So you see some of the really old guns that will have the more modern ignition system on them.
Right.
And then with collectors, you see them converting them back to flintlock.
Reconverted them back to the old configuration, yes. Yep. Now, unique to this particular one, though, it has two barrels. It has an upper barrel and a lower barrel.
Okay.
And the significance of this particular piece is that it's a swivel breech. We call it a swivel breech, Kentucky type. It's got two barrels. One is smooth bore and the other is rifled. Both of the same caliber, and you have the option then of putting a ball in each one, or you can put buckshot in the smooth bore and you can put a ball in the rifled bore, and that way when you go hunting you have the option of either, if you see small game, you use the shot; if you see big game, you use the ball.
And how do they select which barrel fires?
Well, it's just a matter of taking it when you cock it. Once you cock it, you just rotate the barrel. It's in position, and you're ready to fire.
That is very cool.
How cool is that?
Very cool. Now, we call these Kentucky rifles, and you mentioned that some were made in Pennsylvania. Where does the term Kentucky rifle come from?
Wow, that's a long story, but basically the Kentucky rifle evolved in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
In somewhere within the Lancaster, York area, Pennsylvania. If you're to talk to the folks in York County, Pennsylvania, they'll tell you it evolved from York County. Talk to the folks in Lancaster County, they'll tell you that's where it evolved from. But there's no question about where it evolved from. And basically, most of the Kentucky rifles that you see today, or that were made in Pennsylvania. From there, it evolved into other regions like Virginia and the southern states as well as the New England states. Ohio, and of course points west, yes. But most of the Kentucky rifles came from Pennsylvania. Now, it has to do with the War of 1812, and the story is a long one, but it had to do with the Battle of New Orleans, the sharpshooters, and that really took out many of the opposing force, and in doing so, we had minimal casualties. They had thousands of casualties, and it was these riflemen that helped to help do that battle and win the battle for us. So a ballad was written about these Kentuckians with the Kentucky rifles. Even though there were Tennesseans, there were about 2,000.
And made in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
There were about roughly 2,000 Kentuckians. They came with their Kentucky rifles, so-called Kentucky rifles. About 2,000 Tennesseans. They came with their so-called Tennessean rifles or Kentucky rifles. And but the ballad was written about the Kentuckians with their Kentucky rifles at the Battle of New Orleans. At that time, when a ballad became popular, it hung around for about 10 years. So from that, anytime someone saw one of these long guns, they would say, "Oh, you got one of them there Kentucky rifles."
There you go.
And the name stuck. But they're really Pennsylvania. Most of them are Pennsylvania rifles. And every now and again, you'll see a reference to Pennsylvania Kentucky rifles, because someone tried to correct the ballad to the reality.
Good luck with that.
And good luck.
Mike D'Ambra, thank you so much.
Awesome,
This has
Mike.
been
Thank you.
fantastic.
Thank you for being here for another special Curator's Corner here in Tulsa.